luxury is kind of disgusting when you
Right.
think about
Right.
the turmoil that it has
Mhm.
put people in or exploited
Yeah.
the people that it's exploited. History has shown countries who've empowered women are better.
Yes.
They're more stable. They are
Mhm.
economically better off. There's just something to be learned in history from that. And I know the tides are turning and hopefully getting better, but
That's very true. So when you empower women, you're empowering your community because women care about the community. They care about their kids. They care about their kids in the community. And if the community is in shambles, how are they supposed to send their kids out into a chaotic community?
oh, that's another podcast.
Out west where the sun always beams bright. Midland skies keep the hustle in sight. BAM Consultants got the blueprint intact. For dreamers on the grind, they got your back. Championing dreams from the ground to supreme. Providing that spark, igniting the team. Marketing flow strategies that glean. BAM in Midland, building your dream.
Bam!
Every time. I love it.
How are you doing today, Miss Gina?
Great. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic.
It's always a good day with Angel.
Always. Just looking, seeing it on the calendar. It's like, all right,
I know.
here we go.
Something exciting to look forward to.
We get to dive into active recovery.
Love it. Very much active recovery.
Yes. And this one, who we're going to talk about today, was your choice. And I think it's a powerful choice, very appropriate. So I'm going to allow you to introduce today's guest.
Thank you so much. Could we have timed this better with the market and what's going on today? And I just feel like it's very appropriate that we are talking about the Hetty Green, the Queen of Wallstreet.
She was also known as
the Witch
the
of
Witch of Wallstreet. Lots of negative connotations about
Lots of
Miss
negative
Hetty Green.
connotation. It's almost like a badge of honor in a spiteful way.
I like that.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know how she felt about that.
I don't think she cared.
She's a feisty
I don't think
human.
she cared at all.
Feisty human, richest woman in America in the Gilded Age. Not someone I learned about in high school.
No, they're not going to teach us about her.
Next to her peers who were Carnegie, her mentors as well, Carnegie, Rockefeller, and she was right up there with them. But why don't we hear about her?
Right. I mean, she was involved in the railroads.
Yeah.
Right? Like
fascinating. Did big things.
Huge.
In the railroads and banking as well. Okay. Should I break down, like start from scratch her life in the gist? So she was born in 1834. So no way we would have crossed paths. And I'm so sad because if I could interview anyone knowing her story now, I would love to interview her.
For context, pre-Civil War.
Pre-Civil War, fifth generation wealth. So her family had a whaling business.
Whaling business. That was the energy business of the times.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
True. And they capitalized on trade with China, which, I think new tariffs were just announced Wednesday. And as expected, the economy is volatile.
Yeah.
These times are going to happen anytime there's change. But she's been through these kinds of things, and we'll talk about her life experiences. She was rejected by her parents.
Yeah. Her psychology has everything, know so much about human psychology now. And the upbringing that a person goes through has so much to do, with their life. And she was broken early. Severely broken early.
Yeah.
Think about that. Rejected by your parents who were strict, very strict. They were Quakers.
Yeah.
Right? So to be rejected and to be raised by your grandparents.
Yeah. There's something so visceral. And we were talking about your primal need to just be loved and accepted by your parents. That's the one. But I don't know. It just hurts. I hurt for her.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't think we'd have Hetty Green without that. Yeah.
No. I mean, all the circumstances that happened to her when she was young, being raised by her grandfather, who was pretty much blind and depended on Hetty as an 8-year-old to read him the papers, all the financial papers, that's
The
how
stock
the
quotes,
stuff.
the
Yes.
commerce reports,
Yeah.
Hetty had to read those to her
Yeah.
grandfather because he couldn't see very well.
Right.
What a great parenting tactic, by the way. I'm going to start doing that. Like, honey, I can't
I
see
can't
very well.
say,
Can you?
read this.
Yeah, can you read this for me?
Because
Like,
then it's in service.
yes,
Right. But
they
this,
want to do that. They want to
right.
be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Sneak in those veggies. I can't see this. Can you taste it and tell me if it's broccoli? More shocking is why her parents rejected her. And it's because they wanted a boy.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's wealthy, right? And was it trending, or is it just kind of the way society had worked up until then that you
so.
had a male heir
I think so.
to take on that family's wealth?
Mm-hmm.
And so we're just horribly disappointed
Yeah.
that they had a girl. But you're right. Her grandfather, saw more in
Right.
her.
And nurtured it.
Nurtured it.
Yeah.
And her grandfather and her father sent her to boarding school. They still wanted her to be what was acceptable for a woman at the time. So they did send her to boarding school at about 10 years of age, and she went to several different boarding schools trying to ingrain in her what they thought a female should be.
Because why would anybody want to marry her otherwise?
And they pressured her to get married.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she was like in a position to be like the debutante of her times.
Truly.
And she was running around with the debutantes of the time.
Truly.
Right? Like she were her friends. And like they, what was that lady's name? Ann Lee. And she was, came from a rich family, of course, but she was like the Paris Hilton
of her time.
Right.
And went to boarding school with. I did hear something about that. So yeah, she was very much in the mix. However, she eschewed the dress. Like, she didn't do her hair, do her makeup, wear fancy clothes.
Right. All
dressed down. She would wear her clothes until they had holes in them.
Yeah.
Even though her family is worth millions at the time.
She never owned a home. I think she lived in New York. She only rented apartments. Yeah.
Well, she owned real estate.
Right.
Yes.
But that was a business
transaction. She lived frugally in an apartment. How wild. Which I think is trending now. The
minimalist type.
And to just spend your money elsewhere. And so renting the nicest property you can to account for property taxes, like what you would be paying in a mortgage and property taxes.
Yeah.
And since you will always have property taxes when you own,
right,
their thinking is just live where you want, move when you want, and not have that hanging over you that you've got to stay put. So, yeah, she's bringing back a new trend.
When I was reading that part, I'm thinking, but you could afford it.
You could.
Easily.
Yeah.
You could probably spend that much every day, that you do every year, spend that every day for the rest of your life. And you're probably going to be okay. You're never going to end up in the poorhouse,
her, I don't know if it was her investment advisor or I don't know who it was. It was the person who managed like her stocks and things like that. He didn't even know how much wealth she had. There were stories about her coming in to make deposits or make trades, and her was a book. Who was that person? But they were surprised. Like, I didn't know you had this.
Right. Yeah. It was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Her trust. So her father left the trust. Right.
It's a whole conversation.
It's a whole other conversation. But the person who is in charge of the trust.
Oh gosh.
Would that be the estate manager? I'm not really sure.
Oh gosh.
But like there was a group of trustees,
come to me.
Right? Like there was a group of trustees that her father had left the trust in care of.
Yes.
And he only left Hetty like a couple million, right?
Right.
But she was never managed the trust. She could only take interest, I believe,
Yes.
from the trust.
So let's get there. Let's talk about that. She started winning her father's trust as she was growing up. She went off to boarding school to New York, and her father was so proud when she only spent $200 out of the $1,200 he gave her he budgeted for her.
Yeah.
And she invested the rest of it. She spent $200, invested the rest of it, which was made him beam with pride that his daughter was that frugal. So she started winning over his trust. Her grandfather passed away, and her father became he inherited the family's whaling business. And Hetty became the family bookkeeper at 13.
That's right.
Can you imagine having your 13-year-old manage the family finances? Right. That's a lot of trust.
Well, yeah. I mean, just to have that thought that it's even a possibility.
Yeah.
That a 13-year-old
can oversee millions of.
That's a phenom, right? I mean,
truly,
that is the genius status.
But despite all of that, when her father passed away, her was put into a trust because her father did not trust her to manage. She managed the bookkeeping during his time alive. I guess it was under his oversight, so he felt comfortable with that. But when he passed away, he had someone else manage her estate and it really bothered her.
Oh, for sure. I think it would anybody, but I think it also bothered her.
Some people are like, "Whoa, I'm glad that's in the trust."
Yeah. But I think it also bothered her because I don't think she fully. There was some reason to say that he was because he was poisoned. They're poisoning me. They're poisoning me. They're poisoning me. Who's they, right?
Yeah.
And then she had a copy of the will. Right.
So she knew
something had changed from the one that was officially stamped as his official will, but there's no way for her to prove but I know if she had it in court, or I don't know. I know there was some battle
for
going
years,
on. Right.
And years and years. And ultimately she also inherited her aunt. So there was about $5 million. Her father was $6 million at the time of his death, but she inherited, he donated about $1 million or so, and she inherited about $5 million that was placed in a trust. And you're right, she could only touch the dividends. She could only and you would think she'd live off of that, but she didn't just live off of that. She built off of those dividends.
Right.
She didn't squander it away. I mean, she really capitalized on that. And then she was also the recipient of her aunt's will, which was about $1 million. And her aunt donated another $1 million. Half of her estate she donated. So very cool also to see this family that's very philanthropic, giving back and, just keeping a small portion for themselves. And same thing, her aunt's estate went into a trust for Hetty because they didn't trust her to manage the estate. And it ate her alive because she felt like she could do better.
Right.
And could find less expensive investments.
Greater returns.
It just really, really bothered her.
Yeah. I think it's I can't pretend to know how a genius thinks, but...
Yes, you can. No. You know how a genius thinks.
But geniuses see things that other people don't, that most people don't. That's why they're geniuses.
That's Angel Garcia right there, if I ever heard it.
Much too kind. I do not feel like genius, but she was able to see numbers. It's like, the Rain Man.
Yeah.
A whole box of toothpicks falls on the floor. I know how many that are, because, right? Do your Rain Man thing, right?
Genius.
That's crazy, right? That's beyond comprehension.
Yeah, for the average person, right? For most people.
For her, she probably saw numbers like that. She saw investments. That's how she saw the world. Yeah. And so when somebody doesn't have that trust in her, that to her is obvious.
Yeah.
It's like,
what else does she have to prove?
Right.
What else does she have to do? That would eat me alive, for sure.
Yeah.
But there's something fascinating that I want to talk about later, and I won't bring it up now because it's not the right time, but something that blows my mind that I'd love to dig into. She acted as a bank for the community. She had to bail out the city of New York several times.
Several times, yeah.
And so this is before the 1974 Equal Credit Opportunity Act. Are you familiar with that act? Where prior to 1974, which was like 100 years.
100 years plus, yeah.
Plus, after Hetty, I mean, she lived in the early 1900s, but women were not even allowed to open their own bank account, get a loan, get a credit card without their husbands
signing off,
or a male co-signer.
Right. Introducing Founders Focus with Gina Lewis, a once-a-month deep dive on the BAM BizTalk podcast where we spotlight the legends of entrepreneurship and uncover their game-changing strategies. Join me, Angel Garcia, and the ever-insightful and brilliant Gina Lewis as we unpack the stories of iconic founders, what drove their success, bold moves that redefine industries, and the gold nugget lessons they've left behind as actionable insights that small business owners like you can use today. We will also spotlight local entrepreneurs and thought leaders who've taken the stage at Founders Blend Midland. These trailblazers have already shared their expertise in person, and now they're joining us on the podcast to dive deeper into their journeys, unpack their insights, and reveal the rest of the story. Whether you're looking to sharpen your business acumen, stay inspired, or learn how to think like the greats, Founders Focus is your go-to resource. Catch us monthly on BAM BizTalk Podcast, where the wisdom of the past powers the success of the future. To the bold goes the glory.
First, that really pisses me off. But second of all, she was the bank.
She was the bank.
Yeah. How do you, when life gives you obstacles like that, I can't open my own bank account, I will be the bank account.
Right.
Gosh, that gives me...
That's amazing, right?
Something to fight for. Incredible.
That really is. Really is. Because when into perspective, not until the 70s, what we know is the 70s, right?
Yeah.
Was that a thing? Right? Because growing up, we just think, it's, of course, right? It's at least since... of course, since like the early 19th century, everything started to change. Women were able to vote. In what year was that passed?
1960. Wait, I don't know.
I think it was 1920, 1921.
Oh, it was way back then.
Yeah. No. Women were.
I should know that. That's important.
I believe that's correct. 1920, 1921. And
is that called suffrage?
I believe yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Right. And then if I'm wrong, I'll look it up and I'll correct it in the edit.
The dates confuse me a little bit.
Yeah.
Minorities later than that as well, which really pisses me off too. I don't remember the exact dates.
Right.
But it is mind-blowing to me that we didn't even consider humans until relatively recent.
Not that long ago. Right.
That long ago.
That's yeah. We've come a long times in a short period. I'm looking for the silver lining here. Right?
Yeah. Be the bank. That's the silver.
Silver line. Be the bank. No matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't wait on anybody to give you permission.
Because if she would have waited,
truly,
how long she would have?
Never in her lifetime.
Not in her lifetime.
Yeah.
Yeah. But now why do you think they were demonizing her so aggressively?
Well, she was I have my theories. She was an outcast. She didn't dress like they expected her to dress, wearing holy clothes and all black because she was a Quaker. And so there's the enigma of she doesn't fit in with our expectation. But why else would they demonize her? It's almost disappointing. I can see that being emasculating too.
Yes. So
when the city of New York is supposed to be, in power, in charge, and the men are supposed to be protective and secure, stable, and they're leaning on a woman.
Right.
That would throw some a wrench in the plans.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think you're on path there, because it took a long time for actual laws to be passed,
Yeah.
right? But she was proving the point that those laws were, because those laws are based,
Irrational.
right? They're based on the assumption that the male superior,
Right. And that women don't work outside of the home. They don't have
right?
the
A purpose
ability
or ability, yeah,
to make their own income or money.
right. They were property, right? So back in the days, they would trade daughters for cattle. And,
Yeah, true.
oh, you want to marry my daughter? How many cattle are you?
Is that a dowry?
A dowry, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the way things were done,
For so long.
for so long,
Truly from the beginning of time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They'd be away from tradition in that respect.
So a woman generating her own wealth and her own income, just no.
Not only generating her own wealth, but being the saving grace of a city and businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And did you hear the story that anytime this is what's amazing about Hetty too, is she could have been angry, she could have taken advantage of people, but it was so ingrained in her to not kick a person while they're down. And that was one of her mottos, is you don't kick someone when they're down.
Yeah.
So she would often loan money at lower interest rates than everyone else would. Yeah. And so the newspaper would announce Hetty's lowered interest rates.
And it would affect the market.
It would affect everybody else. It's like, oh, we're supposed to be dropping interest rates. Hetty's lower. She was the Fed.
The Fed, yeah. What's the Fed going to do? What's the Fed? Well, they were watching Hetty. What's Hetty going to do?
My mind is blown.
That was amazing right there. When you wrap that around your head, it was like, wait, she's just one lady doing what she thinks is right.
Yeah.
Operating in her own world. That's it.
And I think that rejection from her parents, she was so fiercely independent and felt like you could not rely on anybody else. And felt like she had to make her own way and be her own safety net.
She knew no way.
She knew no other way.
Hey there, bookworms and knowledge seekers. Ever wished you could find everything you need in one place? Look no further than the Ector County Library. We're not just about books, though we've got plenty of those, from the latest page-turners to classic favorites. We're talking free high-speed internet, tech classes to boost your skills, and awesome programs for all ages. Kids can dive into storytime adventures, teens can hang out and study, and adults can join book clubs or learn something new. There's always something exciting happening at the library. So whether you're a student looking for homework help, a job seeker needing resources, or just someone who loves to learn, we've got you covered. Swing by your local Ector County Library and see what we're all about. It's more than just books. It's a whole world of possibilities. Ector County Library. Your adventure starts here.
The BAM BizTalk podcast is brought to you by our sponsor, Pachuco's Restaurant. Craving authentic and eclectic cuisine in Midland? Well, Pachuco's has you covered. Located in downtown Midland at the ever-so-legendary and iconic historic building at 316 North Big Spring Street, Pachuco's blends rich and unique flavors in a conveniently pleasant and vibrant atmosphere. Enjoy the highest quality barbecue, savory tacos, burgers, and a variety of other mouth-watering dishes that reflect the spirit of a true Pachuco cuisine. Real, authentic, and just plain different. Check out their menu at www.pachucos432.com or call 432-218-8806 to inquire, or better yet, just show up and get your shine on. At Pachucos, where heritage, exquisite taste, and hospitality come together for an unforgettable dining experience. Pachucos, Midland, Texas. Now back to the show.
Is it Barbara Corcoran? Is that how you say it?
Yeah, from Shark Tank.
Shark Tank?
Mm-hmm.
She says all the time, and she's coming from, give me someone with daddy problems, or, someone who's had a rough childhood, someone who's had to fight to survive.
Yeah.
There's something so primal is the word that comes to mind about having to go through that fight.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when I raise my kiddo,
you don't want to put him through that.
You don't want to put him through that. I've been like, for his first 5 or 6 years, I was like, no caffeine, no processed foods. I mean, he lived in such a protected bubble.
Yes. I'm Joe Rogan says similar. He said all the best people that he knows are broken. And I agree with that. You know, a lot of people are just, they're superbly independent.
Yeah.
They're their own, cut from cloth, right? You can't really tie them to anything.
Yeah.
They had hard upbringings, hard childhood.
It makes me think too. I know this is kind of, we're talking about founders, and Hetty brings a different perspective than any of the other founders we've studied. And I can't wait to dig into some of her strategic insights for how to be so successful, different than anything we've studied before. But it makes me wonder how some people go through that broken, tumultuous childhood and end up in a different place versus the CEO of their own empire. You know, how do we, what is it in a person that makes them become the founder when another person has gone through just as much? There's got to be some different ingredient there.
There's something else there. So
not just the battle.
Right. It's the nurture versus nature kind of argument. Twins, identical twins.
Yeah.
Raised together, the same, look the same, were treated the same, everything exactly the same. One ends up a successful CEO, millionaire, great life, great wife, great kids, great family, everybody loves him. And the other one, a criminal, right? Gets swirled into the underworld, or a drug addict.
Yeah. What's the difference?
What was that?
Yeah.
So same thing we're kind of talking about here is what makes that fork?
What makes a founder?
Right.
I know one of the ingredients is a challenge, an obstacle in life. And we've studied other founders that have talked about some kind of obstacle in childhood.
And how do you react to that?
And how do you react to that?
How do you get through the challenge?
Yeah.
Challenge that you overcome, or is it a challenge that you fall prey to?
I wish, and I've said this before in previous podcasts, I wish I gift that quality to people as they're going through obstacles, to see that as their moment. And it hurts so badly, but yet
that's the purpose of it.
Oh gosh.
That's the whole purpose of that moment.
Yeah. Opportunities.
They have to bring themselves out.
Yeah.
And it is them having to do it.
True.
Because if you were to give it to them, they wouldn't be able to. The second time.
That's a good point. We talked a little bit about that too.
It is one of those things that go through the darkest, toughest times. That it's almost the self-reflection on that, your ability to self-reflect and be aware of where, and that you are capable of getting to a better place on the other side of that.
No matter what the laws are.
Right.
No matter what
the laws of the universe, anything that it's just your challenge, your dark moment, right? And then being able to know without a shadow of doubt that there's light at the end of that dark moment, to get through that. Otherwise you're succumbing, and you just allow, and you get run over, and you get pulled into undertow and swirled up.
Our timing of studying Hetty Green and today's economy and news, and I feel like as a society, there's a lot of fear and a lot of panic.
Yeah.
And not enough of this is an opportunity.
Yes.
It's a very scary opportunity, but there's so much opportunity here. And speaking of panics, and our market's very volatile right now. History has proven that on the other side of this is growth.
Yeah.
And so now is not not an advisor or financial
Right.
advisor or anything like that. Do your own studying, but people like Hetty Green take advantage of these opportunities.
100%. 100%. And anybody.
Ride it out.
Yeah. 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 What's Charlie Munger's number 1 rule?
Love that.
Number 2 rule, I think, is don't lose money.
Don't lose money.
Number 3 is refer to.
Yeah. I mean, simple. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
So Hetty Green lived through several panics, more than I would care to go through. Yeah. So 1873, I think at the time, let's see, she was born in 1834. So she was, quick math on that, 40. I know, I'm like, girl math.
She was like 43?
Public math.
Is that, yeah, never do math.
She was about 40, 39, 40, roughly. Okay. And she capitalized on that first panic. She saw it coming. Mm-hmm. She prepared for it, and her foundation, or like her advice to others, was have a large cash position during those times, and then you're able to buy on the dips and buy, at discount.
Yeah,
shopping was her thing. Yeah, in a way.
You know what? That's wisdom.
Buy on a discount. Never pay full price.
Never. Mm-hmm. Right. That's why, I guess that's why Munger's been coming up so much in this. But him and Charlie, they pretty much studied Hetty as like their.
Did they?
They had to have. I don't know. Okay. I'm just saying it's almost the exact same philosophy. Right? It'd be interesting.
Makes sense.
And as much as Warren reads.
He had to have read on Hetty.
And Charlie. They were both just extreme bookworms.
Truly. And she set the bar. And for all the other brokers and bankers were learning from her.
They all
looked to her.
Sought to
what
her.
Is she doing?
Mm-hmm.
So they had to have.
Oh, yeah.
It's just a guess, but they had to.
They had to have, the amount they read. Yeah. And Charlie Munger's encyclopedic, just his... when he talked, the way Warren Buffett describes him making a decision.
Yeah.
You don't see the wheels. There's gears whirring, because, and he's going through everything that he's ever read, experienced.
Yeah.
Distills it. That's what you should do.
Using historical knowledge. There's something to it,
something
I think.
There. Something there.
Maybe we could learn from that. Next panic that she lived through was 1884. So almost about 11 years later.
Yeah. Sometimes
it takes markets a while to recover. Mm-hmm. I think one was like it took 13 years to dig out of and recover and get back to growth. So to have one 11 years later, that's a little too close for comfort. And in 1893, so what's that, 9 years later, they were back to back to back.
But those years were...
very volatile.
Yeah. I mean, because half the country had died fighting each other.
Yeah.
Right before then.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah. That we had to go through that.
And the economic fallout from...
Yeah. I mean, because the war got so bad that they were taking out railroad.
Yeah.
It was scorched earth policy. I mean, that's able to conquer so much.
And seeing the war, which is horrific.
Yeah.
But then seeing the opportunity, the steel industry, the industries that would boom out of that.
Yeah.
There's just something to be learned there. You can't avoid the bad things.
Right.
So what can you control? What can you do?
And that's where Hetty was. She was extremely innovative because she was putting money into the railroads. She was the whaling industry.
Kind of before others saw the value in railroads.
And that's why.
And she got out of it before the downfall of the railroads.
But even coming up in the whaling industry, right? When that was the world's energy, right? For kerosene, that. So for her to see the downfall of it, right? And know that if I stay here, right, pivot, exactly, to get out of that,
Yeah.
you know,
When that had been a 5
that
generation.
was, that created all their wealth.
Yeah.
I mean, the town, where's it, New Bedford, right? I believe.
Massachusetts.
Massachusetts, I believe. I mean, that was all a whaling town.
Yeah. Know when to pivot, when to turn down the family business.
Right.
Oof.
Because she used to go with her dad to visit all the fishermen, the captains, and she learned there.
Truly.
Right. Going down the wharf and, him just, hey, pinching the dollar down, right? Making sure he got a good deal. That was her whole life. She grew up in that. But she saw that, okay, that's not going to work. We got to move on because the world is changing.
Yeah.
Right? Just like right now,
the
world is changing. As we speak.
Make of that what you will.
Yeah.
You can either stick your head in the sand or you can be your bank.
Be your bank.
Yes.
There's so many different ways. You know? And I think now that we have technology, the internet, that one tool of technology allows us to be almost like omnipresent. We see everything at once.
Wild, yeah.
Which with the world in her days, it took forever to receive information. And everything operates.
Yeah.
But it's almost now that we get overwhelming too much information.
True. But you had to be on your game back then and how to predict days out. Whereas now we can kind of predict second by second almost.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to know what the stock market's doing, just pop up your app and, yeah, well, 30 seconds ago it was.
Yes. Yeah. And can kind of analyze those trends and.
Those tickers are wild.
Those tickers, the candlestick patterns and all that fun stuff. Yes. I can't even imagine the foresight, something in Hetty Green we can all learn from. And why didn't we learn about her?
Right. She should have been in our textbook.
Truly. And as if 3 panics weren't to go through, there was another panic in 1907. And all 4 of those panics, Hetty Green did well through those. She did not panic. Whereas other people,
everybody else is
people who were just as wealthy lost everything during that time. Yeah. So it's easy to point the finger and be like, oh, well, she was born in this wealth.
Yeah.
Just because you inherit or are born into it or raised in it.
Yeah.
People have tried to pass it on to you, ingrain it in you, doesn't mean that not only will you do well with it, but you will grow it exponentially.
Right.
And I have a feeling if she was born with a penny to her name, she would have been able to
grow it, been able to do something with it.
Grow it.
I mean, look at people who win the lottery.
Yeah. Sometimes that's the worst thing that can happen to them.
Because they didn't know how to manage money before. Just flooded with all this wealth. No.
It's not easy.
They end up in a worse place than they were before because now they own a big house and they have that property tax bills coming up, the huge monthly electricity bills coming
The restraint that Hetty Green had to have to see all these other women who were spending money on luxury items and to be like, I don't need external validation.
Right. That's part of what was broken as a child.
It's a common theme in the founders. They don't need external validation. There's something about the founders we've studied, which I think is beginning to be a recurring theme, that external validation is not what they seek.
Yeah, because they have it. They are validated.
They know it.
Yeah.
They have that internal
scoreboard. Even if there's existential kind of, because I think even they go through, what do you call it? What's the word I'm missing for? Like, it's a term that we've talked about before. When you think you're out there faking it.
Oh gosh. Oh no! Why can't I think of what this is? I'm gonna think of it at 2:00 in the morning.
Right?
Text you, be like, I got
it. And it's we use all the time. We're talking about entrepreneurs and founders, and because you get yourself into and you get in deep. Now you have responsibilities that you have overhead.
You have a front to put up. Fake it till you make
Fake
it
it till
is
you make
our
it. Right.
motto.
Because we're okay. We're all just trying to figure it out still. Right. On a day to day, we're just trying to figure this thing out.
Yeah.
How, and I'm not saying like, okay, what have we figured out? We're always trying to figure out because we don't like where we're at.
Yeah. There's a lot to be said about that too.
We always want.
There's always
Something else.
the next thing.
One of the things about that an entrepreneur, I think, is a trait an entrepreneur would greatly benefit from.
Growth.
And my mentor, Michael, this is his number one thing that he said. It was so simple. You got to keep it fresh, new, and exciting.
Yeah.
Everything. Right?
Yeah.
He's talking about your business or your marriage, friendships, things that you always have to keep it moving.
Yeah.
Can't think of the term, but
I know it'll come, and maybe someone listening to this podcast is listening like, I know what you're talking about. They're like yelling the word out and we can't hear you.
But we appreciate you.
We appreciate you. Throw it in the comments.
Please.
But what was also very interesting about Hetty, and we've studied these founders, that they don't have this work-life balance necessarily.
Oh.
They eat, sleep, breathe. She put work away at the end of the day. And maybe it was different because her line of work was banking and there are only so many hours of the day that takes place. But at the end of the day, she put it away and she enjoyed her family life and didn't start work again until the next day. Yeah. So I found that fascinating that she truly enjoyed and talked about enjoying a work-life balance versus that hunger, that nonstop. She was just calculatingly wise.
Yes, that's a good way to put it. Right? That's a very good. That she saw what we call now the grind, the hustle. That's not what it was about for her.
Slow growth, slow and steady.
Yeah, it's that book Tim Ferriss, The 4 Hour Work Week. Right? So it's very intentional.
Yes.
You put your time, what you're doing with your time.
Yeah.
It's the time you have. Okay, you're done. You're done with work.
Yeah.
Now, why do you work? Oh, for Hetty, it was her kids, right? Her son. I think she commented when her son was born, saying, "Everything I do from here on out is because of you."
Yeah.
Right. And even when her daughter was born, she
didn't reject her kiddos.
No.
Just saying, Mom, Dad.
I mean, she fully embraced being a mother.
Yeah.
Even to the point of sending her son to run her railroad.
Yeah.
For her.
That had to have been very scary too.
Yeah.
She wasn't necessarily a control freak. She raised her kids up, and that was one of her strategic insights, was raise your kids knowing how to make their own living, especially girls. She was very particular about that. A girl should know how to make her own living, but raise your kids in the business so that they know business.
Right.
And why is that not a philosophy that we place in schools?
Right.
Well, where would we be as a society?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, I mean, there's a reason the school system is the way it is. And,
that's a whole other podcast series.
Oh, for sure.
Not just one conversation.
No, not at all. Simple of it is they don't want a whole nation full of independent business owners.
Truly.
No, right?
It's unfortunate because it'd benefit everyone.
It would benefit everyone, yeah. If everybody knew how to start a business.
Yeah.
Or even just the option that, you know what, you can start a business. That is so important right there. Because most people growing up are like, that's not for me.
Yeah.
Why not?
And managing wealth. How free we would be. Better sleep. We wouldn't have all these medications that we need to be on to sleep. We just sleep differently.
Yeah. We'd probably, what is it, back in the day before lights, everybody always had two sleeps.
Yeah. First sleep, second sleep. Yeah.
I need me first and second sleep.
That's right. Third,
right? Come on.
Go for extras. But yeah, we didn't get a chance to talk about her marriage. So she was pressured to get married, which was not what she was focused on.
No.
She didn't trust that someone would manage wealth. She was worried about debt.
That's what she, yeah.
And squandering away wealth. And her father kind of was too, which was why he tried to put her in these positions where she would meet someone who would know how to handle that level of wealth. But instead of flirting, she's listening to like stock advice and business skills. That's what she was in these conversations for.
Right. And her husband, he was well off at first.
Yeah, I think he had a couple $1,000,000 or something. I'm just throwing that number out there.
Right. Yeah.
Which kind of showed her father, as if it's up to her father, that he could handle wealth.
Yeah.
Hetty was a little nervous about that still.
Yeah, for sure. But it was the only one that she had any sort of liking to.
Yeah, truly.
You know,
The
even
heart
though
wants what the heart wants.
heart wants what the heart wants. Yeah. You know, and he was charismatic. A little much, a little too much.
Charming.
Yeah. She had to a couple
Yes.
times. Several times.
The Bank of Hetty Green. And that's heartbreaking to see that, you know, this woman who strives to be so amazing never truly met her match as far as like what they could grow together.
Yeah.
It'd be so
right.
great to see a partnership come out of that where they build together.
Yeah.
But yeah, she did have to keep bailing her husband out of these risky decisions. And it's exactly what she was worried about when she got married. And I don't know exactly why they never got divorced.
Oh, it's because of her Quakerism.
Quaker religion that marriage is forever. I know they ended up, or when you get divorced, who would get I think her father put in the will that no debts from her. I think her father planned it out very well in the will that no debts from a marriage, or the husband would not inherit any of that wealth. So if she had gotten a divorce, that would have been protected. So I think you're right. It was a religious thing.
I believe so. And I think religious, it also had transferred into her system, right? That, once you're married, that's it.
Yeah. Incredible woman all around.
Yeah.
I don't know that I could have lived like that. I know I couldn't have lived like, I'll just say that.
Well,
I know I could not.
Let's put it this way. Because you have lived now.
Yeah.
You know,
it's true.
It's almost impossible to see yourself
in that.
Yeah.
In that world.
Yeah.
So yes, they out of marriage, Ned and Sylvia, which I thought was interesting that she named her daughter after her aunt, who she did have a little bit of beef with because of the will and being set up in a trust, but there's obviously some love there. Sure. She named her daughter after her aunt. And also fascinating that at the end of her life, she made sure to be buried next to her husband in the family plot. So in death, they were still together, debt-free. And that I don't know why she did this, but I found it fascinating. And you remember earlier when I was like, there's something I want to say, but it's not the right time to say it. When she wrote her will, Sylvia, her daughter, her portion of the estate went into a trust to be managed by Ned, the male heir. I don't know why.
Interesting. I didn't realize that.
But given everything that Hetty stood for and fought for in life, was Sylvia just one of those daughters that you're like, that's not going to happen?
Not for her. Well, I do remember
what
reading
happened there?
That Hetty in her gave away most of her money.
Truly. And that was the family tradition, I think. The vast majority.
Yeah. I think a large portions of MIT was granted by Hetty.
That's cool.
Because she donated her money to education, libraries, not like Carnegie, right?
Yeah.
Very just, when I die, all my money is going to put to good use.
What a great legacy.
I think so.
Her net worth was approximately, different figures online, but 100 million to 200 million, which in today's back then.
Wow. So today, I mean, she's
Billions.
a billionaire. Yeah.
Yeah. Would have been today one of the wealthiest people.
Yeah. Without a doubt.
Entrepreneurs and small business owners, are you searching for ways of taking your business to the next level? BAM is your answer. We specialize in crafting high-performance marketing strategies that put your brand front and center right in the palm of your customers' hands. Not only can we create a premium website full of features that optimize your social media and digital marketing presence, but we ensure that your brand gets multiple views from your target audience and even those visiting your competition. BAM is your go-to solution in the Permian Basin. But we're not just about digital and social media marketing. We're a one-stop shop offering a spectrum of services including business mentorship, strategic planning, market research, and access to capital. That's right. We can get you funding to expand your business. With BAM, you're not just getting a service, you're gaining a partner committed to your growth for the life of your business. So why wait? Kickstart your journey to success today. Call us to set up a free consultation and discover how BAM can help your business soar above the rest. 432-247-8840. Call today and get your business launched.
But yeah, I just found that odd. Like, why did her daughter's portion of the inheritance go into a trust to be managed by a male heir when that was such an issue for her?
Right.
And is the answer out there somewhere? Or was that like a family secret that was never revealed?
Maybe.
Should we talk about bringing this full circle to founders and how this example is applicable in our businesses?
Yes.
Strategic insights. And we had mentioned, how are we doing on time?
We just under an hour. So
we're
great time.
There's an internal clock there. And we had mentioned seek elegance, not. I love that so much. That's one of those phrases that when I heard it just gave me this, I don't know, warm, like, why not seek elegance? Luxury is kind of disgusting when you think about the turmoil that it has put people in or exploited the people that it's exploited. There's a time and a place, and we all have our things that we spend money on, but an elegance that is so appealing. I don't know, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that it can be subtle, right? So elegance, it's like a pursuit of elegance versus the having luxury. Because luxury is like you're boasting, right? You're over the top.
Yes.
This is, now that's luxurious, that has the gold trim and all.
Yeah.
But then there's the simplicity of elegance. It's almost like an aesthetic. You can relate it to like talking about aesthetics.
There's a stability with elegance too.
Yes.
Luxury is volatile.
Right. There's a foundation. There's a structure.
Yeah. Dependable, I guess.
Okay. Yeah.
And when I think about it, she used this in business to seek elegance, not luxury. And when I think about founders and the pressure to be luxurious, flashy, appealing in today's terms, fitting in with expectation. But the quiet elegance, there's just something that helps you sleep better about that at night.
Sure.
Something more stable about it.
Yeah.
In business. And in the cybersecurity world, especially, it is very easy to drop a ton of money on the latest shiny tools.
Gotcha. Oh.
And people fall for that in cybersecurity, like swoon over, you have this tool. And that's not necessarily what makes you more secure, but it sure is appealing to, the masses, I would say. But that slow, steady elegance of really knowing your business.
Right. Because that is breaking down. That's the simplicity of it. It's the full terms of it.
Yeah.
It's almost the difference between simple and easy. There's a difference there.
Yeah. Yeah, there is. Kind of makes you think a little bit.
Yeah.
But there's definitely a difference. Segueing into these things kind of go hand in hand, avoiding debt. And the business advice I get nowadays is OPM.
Other people's money all the time.
All the
Right.
time.
Yeah. I've found myself guilty of saying that before, you know.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
I've gone that way. There are certain times where I'm like, use other people's money. But there's something so scary about that. And I don't know how Elon Musk feels, but just knowing his numbers on paper is scary to me.
Yeah.
I would not sleep well at night. No offense, because he's incredible
Yeah.
and powerful and forward thinking and innovative.
Yeah.
But to be all of that without debt,
Yeah.
gosh, that feels really good.
And the
Really
number of
healthy.
times that he's been on the edge of losing everything,
So scary.
you know, and then rolling the dice one
Yeah.
more time because he's that confident that this time it's going to work.
Yeah.
I mean, the story of SpaceX is insane.
Truly.
Right.
And his risk appetite, SpaceX could only come from someone with his
That's
risk
it.
appetite.
And his genius, you know, and knowing that he's last penny
Yeah.
just for this one, because if this last shot doesn't work, he's out.
And there's
There's
no
no
way
recovery.
it's not going to work for him. Like he
Right.
will find a way
He's
to
gonna
make
find
it
a
work
way.
and shift and pivot and do what he needs to do.
I mean, his latest move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
Which
well, I
one?
mean, it's like he moves a lot.
Or he just bought out his own company.
Twitter
Yeah.
or X was bought out by his AI
XAI.
company.
Yeah.
And I saw that and I was like, that makes
That's
sense. Like,
right?
yeah.
How did we not see that coming?
Mhm.
Right? Like he was planning that
Truly.
the whole time.
Yeah.
You know, like because
Or he thought of it at 2:00 in the morning. It was
and
like,
just did
this
it.
is going to make sense for sure.
He's
It's
like,
an
I
epiphany.
got him.
Yeah.
You know, checkmate.
Yes. So I am naive enough to think that there's only one possible way. Like Hetty Green's way is the
Right.
only way. And there have been people that have been truly successful on OPM,
For sure.
other people's money.
For sure.
It is just very scary.
Yeah.
And whew,
Yeah. So it's leverage,
yeah,
right? And
buying on margin, which she was told never to do.
to say that again?
Buying on margin.
Oh, buying on the margins, right.
Like in the stock market, you know, you're buying on margin.
Right.
Other people's money. I don't know. Pros and cons. For me, avoiding that debt. But it limits how fast you can grow.
Yeah.
So there are downsides.
There's pros and cons to it all, right? I think like every wise answer that's ever been off with, like, it depends.
It depends.
It
It's
depends.
my favorite answer in cybersecurity.
It depends.
You learn it depends and call yourself a cybersecurity genius.
It works for business consultants
Just kidding.
as well.
That's not wise advice.
You know, should we do this? It depends.
It depends. And it does. There are a lot of nuances to be.
You know,
considered.
someone came in not long ago and they already knew what their head, they knew exactly what they were going to do. And they came in and said, I just want to get your thoughts on this and whether I should do this or not. And he went through the whole scenario and he says, okay, so what do you think about my idea? Should I do it? And I was like, depends.
No.
Like, let me ask you some
Like,
questions.
thanks a lot for that advice. Yeah.
And he laid out the entire thing. And I was like, I don't think the best move. I think you're missing a couple of steps. I think you needed basic fundamentals first. And then when it comes to what you're trying to do, then we're going to do something completely different. It's going to
It's a 10x.
It's going to be so much more beneficial for you. And he's like, okay, well, I'll think about it. And on the way out the door, he's like, so really, what do you think? I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it right now. I was like, oh.
That's a founder for sure.
I was like, hey,
Do it anyway.
if you're going to do it, then hey, man, good luck.
Yeah.
Let me know. Let me know how that goes.
If nothing else, a learning opportunity.
For sure. Yeah. I hope it's a good one for him.
Yeah, for sure. You're saying sometimes you've got to run 10 steps back to get the running start and make that 10x leap versus what's right in front of you.
Right. And, and I commended him. I was like, well, first thing you're doing right is coming up to somebody about it.
Truly.
right? So that's
that mastermind group,
yes,
that mentorship.
right. So you're doing okay. You're taking steps that are smart. Like I want to help you with the other smart steps.
Yeah.
You know.
Entrepreneurial Center does such a good job
Oh,
at that.
thank you.
I see the work you're doing in the community and how you've woven into the stories of so many businesses here in the area.
Oh.
That's a cool place to be.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, I wonder if Dave Ramsey studied Hetty Green because you know how granted he had to fall on his face to get his live without debt and build your business without debt kind of mentality. But did he know about Hetty Green as well? Or was he ever like, wow, she was doing the debt-free building. She was the Dave Ramsey 1.0. Yeah. I don't know. But their storylines, what their advice is very similar. Very, very similar. I love this about Hetty Green as well and how I do business. As always, with this podcast series, I walk away with actionable insights that change and improve the way I do business, and this is one of them. In business, don't close a bargain until you've reflected on it overnight.
Right. Yeah, I love that too.
Yeah.
I love that too. Yeah.
And I think so often we hear the bargain, whether it's they're getting a bargain from you or you're getting a bargain from them, and we're just so excited about the bargain that we don't rest on it for a little bit.
Sleep on it, right?
Sleep
I
on
wonder
it.
if that's where that comes from.
There were stories that exemplified this, and I can't quite remember the exact details, but something about someone made her an offer that she wasn't sure if it was the optimal offer. And anytime she was approached for something like that, she took some time and slept on it.
Yeah.
And it makes them think too, should I up my offer?
Right.
Should I bring something better to the table? Just think there's some value in that all around.
I think that it's a micro and a macro issue because putting space in between everything.
Yeah.
Your thoughts.
And not missing that one moment either.
Right. You can't.
Things move so fast today.
Yeah, you can't pause forever.
Yeah.
You can't put infinite space in there.
You can't be rash.
A breath, right? You can't sleep on it. Things do not have to have an instantaneous, reaction.
And our world kind of leads us to think that you
Yes.
got to make a decision
right now.
now.
Go now.
That's
now.
a closer's mentality for sure. Just sign here and here.
Yes. Yes. So growing up, when we were in all kinds of situations, my dad would always...
Growing up, we were in all kinds of situations. Can just be a bumper sticker, please.
Right.
That's so relatable.
And no, there were not seatbelts.
You would see that on the back of a car and be like, I feel that.
For instance, just one example, we were on vacation, and they're trying to sell us the timeshare.
Oh, yes.
And that's high pressure.
Oh,
They're like,
gosh, they will not. They hold
Yeah.
you hostage.
Yeah, making you feel.
Got to be a legal business practice.
It's got to be. Making you feel guilty about the breakfast you just ate because they paid for it.
Yes.
They're like, I would have paid for my own breakfast.
Yeah, I could get cold eggs at the hotel I stayed at.
Thank you.
Yes.
No, but my dad always said, "Oh, I'm okay. Well, I'm not signing today."
I love that.
I don't say yes to high pressure
Or
stuff.
watch someone flip their lid.
Yeah.
Go to a timeshare presentation. Tell them you need to sleep on it. It's just a fun experiment. Hold your ground.
Yeah.
Don't fall for it.
Don't give in.
You just need some excitement in your life. Do that. I do on Saturday. Just kidding. For fun.
Yeah. But that's a lesson that I've always stuck with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not signing
If
right
I'm high
now.
pressured, I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
you want me? No.
Yeah.
I'm good then. Well, it's the best deal you ever get, and you can only get it today. That's awesome. I appreciate you offering that. I'll try to get it.
If I really feel like this is the right thing, I'll see what's available tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that mentality. And often that leads to better deals.
Yes. Yes.
Or things that you don't do. The the best business you do, what you don't do, or whatever the decisions you make or the decisions you don't make. Let's see, what else was Hetty Green's? We talked about it's the duty of every woman to learn how to take care of her own business affairs. And what a great business partner. Not that marriage is about business, but, you know, what a great partnership that you as a woman can bring that to the table in a marriage.
Yeah.
So for years and years and years, since the beginning of time, it has been one decision maker instead of two very capable, powerful people at the table growing together and building together.
Yeah.
And that to me is just very, very hot, for lack of a better word. Like, why aren't we doing that way?
Right. No, 100%.
And business that way.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's the duality of that, right? Because when you bring in the perspective of the male and female and make your decisions based on that duality,
Yeah.
you know, so much more can come of that, you know?
Things you can build together.
There's so much more in collaboration than saying, sit down, I'll make the decision.
Yeah.
That's you only get half the perspective there, half the information. Wouldn't it make sense to incorporate this whole other half that we're ignoring?
Yeah. We talked about that too in, I think it was it was with Paul Graham, how your co-founders, it's like a marriage as well. And if everyone learns how to take care of their own business affairs in business together, you'll be that much more powerful because you'll have two people who are able to come up with solutions. There could be a power struggle, maybe, but if you're finding the right partner, it'll just be multiple people that are capable of incredible solutions.
Yes,
moving in the same direction.
Because everybody enhances everybody else.
Yeah, it's truly.
You know, it's truly like a holographic image, right? All right, are greater than the whole.
Yeah. So, very valuable advice for our daughters,
Yes,
our women, and in business, and our co-founders. There's just so much to be gained from Hetty's perspective. And then large cash positions during panics. We talked a little bit about this before we started recording the podcast, but every team I have led, even though it's not necessarily my place to advise on, I feel like there's a certain strength that brings to the team when your team members aren't silently struggling with personal financial matters and can openly discuss things like that, can brainstorm together, and it makes the company better.
yes,
The team better when you brainstorm those kinds of things together. Very personal, not traditional
no, it's not
leadership
right.
at all. But I've always advised my team to build their own safety net.
Yeah,
You just don't know. And the next administration comes along and flips these tariffs back.
right.
You know, I mean, this world is a very volatile world. And so building that safety net, we slowly continued to build so she would withstand all the panics and the pandemics and the civil wars and all the things.
Because she saw it coming.
It's going to come.
Right.
This world, I'm going to predict that for right now, and it's not smooth sailing.
No, it's not. No, it never is, right?
No.
I mean that's what keeps things going.
Yeah, truly.
Ray Dalio, The Rise and Fall of Empires, I believe.
I don't know. It sounds like another good book to get
That's
into.
a good book, right?
Okay.
So he goes back throughout history, and he tracks each empire that's ever existed. Not, but the ones that had a world global impact, even if it was in their territory. But they all have a rise and they all have a fall. We know of like the Roman Empire, right?
Yeah.
Had a long stretch of rising, had a long stretch of falling, right? And it was segmented, fragmented. But closest we're mimicking it here in the United States. Not history to repeat, but it sure rhymes.
Yeah.
Right. So it is that rhyming, and the same thing with markets. It's called currency for a reason, right? It's a current. It's moving. It has to move. There's an ebb and flow. It's how it exists.
Yeah.
Right? It's the oceans. We're twisting in a ball. We're in motion constantly. Right. Energy is moving. That's what life is.
Object in motion wants to stay in motion.
Right. And to stay in motion, it's not in a vacuum, and it's not gonna stay in one speed.
Steady.
Right.
Unchanging.
It has to fluctuate. That's what gives life. That's why we breathe. And it's a
Compression and a
right release. Right. So our markets would act in the exact same way. It's the very microscopic to the macro, right? It's overall trends, larger perspectives, and mimicked all the way down to a level. So everything in between has to follow the same laws of the universe.
Ebb and flow. Yeah.
And it's people like Hetty Green who can see that.
Yeah.
It just makes sense, to someone like her.
Yeah.
So
dress holes in it. Do what you gotta do.
So what was that? Something from Hetty Green. She a reason she dressed like that was to hide
her wealth too. It was protective of it. Yes. Wasn't there several where she had to take, was it cash to various locations, and her banker was so mad at her, like, you cannot carry this much wealth.
Yeah.
And this much cash currency in person, like from place to place. Right. She's dressed in she's safe.
She's safe. But that story you're talking about, he had something very cool something that wealth in rags, as opposed to luxury or something in the finest threads or finest silks or something like that.
I'm gonna have to go look that up because it just sounds like a quote I would love. But such valuable knowledge. And also we talked about this, the buy on discount, and she bought at auctions. Also segueing, she bought the railroad at an auction. Yeah. She bought real estate at almost always in foreclosure. She never paid full price for anything. And her other advice was to hold on to that real estate. Ebbs and flows, hang on to that. And that served her very, very well. Yeah. So thinking about that in business, your portfolio is broad, able to withstand the ebbs and flows and be prepared during those panics. And, this was just another thing that crossed my mind a little while ago, but and I'll get off my soapbox about women and the value and being able to something to the table and being taught to navigate our own paths and being capable of navigating our own paths. But history, countries who've empowered women are better off. Yes. They're more stable. They are economically better off. Yeah. There's just something to be learned in history from that. And I know the tides are turning and hopefully getting better, but
yeah, that's very true, right? So when you empower women, you're empowering your community, because women care about the community. They care about their kids. They care about their kids in the community. And if the community is in shambles, how are they supposed to send their kids out into a chaotic community?
Oh, that's another podcast.
But it's the reason, it goes to what you're saying, is empower women, have empowered communities. Yeah. And we can all live better lives, right? Because now we're including the other half of ourselves into what we do. Because men, we're programmed to hunt. That's protect.
I'm just
hunt.
kidding. I'm kidding.
We're
Yes.
programmed to hunt,
I'm
kill,
vegan, by the way, so hopefully it's hunting celery, something gentle.
protect and kill.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
You know, so when we're looking at building, well, we're trying to build ourselves.
Yeah.
We're trying to build just for our immediate bubble of our legacy.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
It stops right there, right? I mean, there's anomalies, right, that be world builders, but for the most part, in general terms here.
Sure. You can't put everything in a
Right.
box, but in general,
Yeah, that's where we're meant to protect, kill. That's it. Whereas the other half, now that's where that union comes in, the partnership of nurturing, of building a community that benefits the most people.
yeah. I love that this founders podcast has segued a little bit into marriages and the foundation, the founders
Yeah.
of society
Yeah.
and the builders of society. I think it all comes full circle, and there are lessons
Yeah.
for all of those founders.
Absolutely, in all facets of life, right? Because we talk about founders. Well, what we're really talking about are those of us who are exceptional and who have a standard and who have gone above and beyond of what average people do, right? Just your normal everyday person.
Doing things no one else will.
Right. Because maybe they do have a higher risk tolerance, but what they are is they're examples.
Yeah.
And that's why we put a microscope on them. And we're like, okay, let's talk about what they accomplished, just the amazing scenario of their life, a life examined, right? We're examining their life, and we're plucking out, we're cherry picking founders because that's what we do, right? We're entrepreneurs, we're business owners, and that's how we relate. However, you'll be hard pressed to find another demographic or niche that has qualities that are so exciting for us. That we love to talk about them.
Yeah.
Like Elon Musk comes up in every conversation that we have.
Every podcast we've done, might have mentioned
him. So, that's the obvious one that we probably do on because he just comes up in everything. He is like the ultimate entrepreneur, the ultimate founder. He is like in hundreds of years. We're looking back
studying
Elon.
Yeah, that's wild.
It's wild, and the fact that he's getting so much hate right now.
I mean, that's the game.
That's the game. But here's the beautiful part about that. He knew he was walking into, and he's willing to go through it. He's not stopping, right? He still wants to get humanity to Mars.
Yeah.
That's still his mission. He's just taking a little side thing right now to make sure America's cool.
I wish one of those play and play or whatever, the little subs TV images where we show a video of one of his recent interviews. We're totally segueing from Hetty Green, but someone asked him how are your businesses? How are you handling all of your businesses doing this? And his face was just very relatable. I wish we could pull that up and show that right now. But did he know what he was walking into fully?
Fully, no. I don't think he was going to get.
He knew it was going to be volatile.
Right.
He knew it was going to be risky.
He knew he was going to get a lot
calculated the risk. But to watch this unfold and his face in real time during this interview where he is processing in front of the camera, it's just very relatable as a founder. And yes, we will be studying this for years from now. And what segueing into politics and mixing politics and business and all of these things will have a lot of lessons learned.
I think so.
Come out of.
What's interesting about that is that when America was founded, that's who founded it. Business
owners.
And the whole purpose was to serve your country and then go back. We were never meant to have career politicians. We were never even meant to have two sides. We weren't meant to have a red and a blue.
Yeah.
We were meant to be people.
Yeah.
People coming
United.
together. United. It's there. It's a name. And we've come so far off of that. But it almost happened off the get-go, right?
Yeah.
Washington, Adams, they didn't want a two-party system, right? Maybe Adams is the one. I think Adams' son is the one who pushed the two-party system. But there was many who didn't want.
Ask my son. He is the history major.
Nice.
Actually, I have a military history minor. I should know these things.
But I think it's good that this is happening.
Yeah.
Because, all these moguls help us out, right? But to kind of get the train back on track.
Have we had this in history before?
I believe so. When was it? I was this.
I mean, obviously, with Hetty's story, she played a political role by saving a city and saving businesses and things like that. So in history, entrepreneurs have stepped in and fixed some things.
Right.
But on the scale of what we're seeing today, has this happened before, and what have we learned from it? And are we on the path that historically has shown to
be beneficial? I believe so. My gut's telling me yes.
Yeah, I feel like they're out there.
Yeah.
And I think if we chew on those a little bit, we'll feel a little bit better about where we're at.
I think so. Because it goes one or two ways, right? It goes down into an extreme, in both, extreme socialism, right? Under the guise of for the people, right? And then the other way is, hey, we're just kind of all on our own here, so figure it out.
Yeah.
And that's more we're coming from the jungle, right?
Either way,
the tribe and
bank.
Be the bank.
No matter what, tomorrow you can wake up confident and comfortable, knowing what you need to be.
Yeah.
Regardless.
So the lesson we learned from Hetty is be the bank.
Be the bank. I like it. Be your own bank. Be everyone else's bank. Be the solution.
There you go. Right? Be what you've been looking for. Become it.
Yeah.
Be the bank. Be, like you said, be the solution. I love that right there.
Yeah.
That's Gandhi-esque.
Gandhi-esque. I love it. Lots to be learned there.
Yes, ma'am.
This is a one.
Yeah, absolutely. I loved it.
And the learning won't stop here.
Oh, no.
I don't just study for these podcasts and then not look at these founders again throughout the month. I'm still meditating, still taking little nuggets and just building and building and building. And that's my hope for our listeners and colleagues and friends.
Yeah.
A little bit from this too, and it just makes us all better together.
I love that, right? So remember that when you listen to this podcast, any podcast, when you're consuming information,
active recovery,
to give yourself space, internalize it.
Yeah.
If you're just in a rush,
chewing.
right? You can never actually learn it, because then it's luxury.
Yeah.
Then it's just a luxury item.
Yeah.
You're doing it for the gram, doing it for the flash,
Yeah.
just to say, oh yeah, I listen to podcasts, or I read 1,000 books a year.
To my mind is eating. Eat without thinking about it. Your body doesn't benefit as much from it as if you sit and experience it and process it. I don't know all the ins and outs and the science behind it, but reading is very similar. If you just eat it and not think about it, it's not as beneficial.
Your body processes it differently.
It does.
Yes.
Your mind processes it differently when you take some space.
Absolutely. Like, my grandmother is turning 97 this year.
Aww.
Yes.
Shout out to Grandma.
Shout out to Abuela.
Aww.
She takes her time to eat. Like, she chews everything.
Does that drive you crazy? I sense a little bit.
It's amazing.
It's an experience.
Yeah, because she's always done it, right? We eat, we're done. We're ready
Yeah.
to go. She's just getting started.
Yeah.
You know, making sure everything, you know, and then when she does take a bite, just make sure that
Nourishing her body.
yes, and she's in great health.
Yeah.
You know, she still moves
Obviously.
around on her own.
Fantastic.
A little bit slower, but she's 97.
Yeah.
You know, but there's something to that. You know, that has to be one of the
I've
things.
heard over and over and over again
Yeah.
that just enjoying a meal, being present,
You nailed it right there. Those are the next words out of my mouth. Being present, right? There's that book by Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now, right? Now, right? That's being present.
yeah. Hetty Green. At work, she was at work.
But
at home, she was
at
at
home.
home.
Right. There. That's a golden nugget right there.
Every society tries to fight that. Back. No. What is best?
Yeah. So take the space.
Take the space.
Be present. And be your bank.
Be your bank. Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. You'd ask to let y'all know if y'all made it this far. Thank you. Yes. But please suggest somebody you want us to
Please.
do a
I
deep
would
dive
love
on.
that.
Yeah. Somebody just out of the ordinary.
Send us on an adventure.
Yeah. I'd like to know somebody that I don't know about.
Yeah.
You know, show us something new. That's what it's about.
That's exciting.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Ms. Gina.
Thank you so much, Angel. Pleasure
Absolutely.
always.
Always a pleasure. We'll see you next time. Founders Focus.